Hey guys, so we're going to talk about how to sign 16K clients with AI cold email. I'm saying this because I've done this and I'd like to think that I can lead you to the proverbial promised land as I'm helping dozens of agency owners achieve results like this in real time right now. Testimonials channel linked in the bio, and if this is your first time here, I have hundreds of videos showing you how to do this. That being said, after scaling 4 companies now, this is my fourth to a significant amount of revenue and helping to scale dozens of others, what I find holds people back is not their offer, not their niche or anything like that, but really they just don't have a way to get clients at the drop of a hat, at the push of a button. So there are a lot of things that must go right in order for you to be able to sign 16K clients, and we'll touch on a few of those things in this video. But as per the theme of this channel, we are going to primarily focus on client acquisition. That's what I'm good at, and that's what people pay me for. So ideally, I want to get you, if you're an agency owner, I want to get you in the position where you can get more clients at the push of a button. That's what this AI cold email system that I install into these agencies and everything we talk about on this channel is really about, is so that you can make more money like this, because our job as marketers is to make money appear out of thin air. It's to scale what works, but really it's to be walking money printers. So we'll focus on client acquisition, because if you get that right, the offer you can borrow from somewhere else. The niche, you just follow the money. Client acquisition is a problem that very few agency owners really know how to solve. And it's one that I do rather well. And it's a very textbook problem to solve. So why AI cold email? So if you are doing anything less, now granted, I don't make this content for complete beginners. I make this content for marketing agency owners or people who are already committed to scaling a marketing agency. I'm not trying to sell you on a new business model, but the vehicle, the mechanism, AI cold email, the reason why it is hands down the single best client acquisition channel you can use going into 2026, especially AI cold email, is because it's probably it is the fastest way and most cost effective way to create a cash injection into your business. I am of the school of thought that you should not be running ads until you are at least making 20 to 30K a month, or you can afford somewhere around the $150 to $200 a day mark at the minimum. And if that's not you, if you don't have an extra $6,000 laying around to spare on ads, you should not be running ads. It's just not going to work out well for you. It's going to take you so long to scale. The reason why people work with me and the reason why I make these videos is to show you how to do things faster and to help you collapse time, because that matters. So AI cold email is the fastest way to make those leaps to go from 10K a month to 30K a month. It's just a math equation at that point. Cold email also allows you to predict your results before you go in pretty accurately, versus having to spend money to test things. And if you know what you're doing, well, then it works like clockwork. If you've tried cold email or AI cold email and you haven't gotten results, it's probably because you don't know what you're doing. And that's fair. That's why we're here. It's also very, very scalable. So it takes you the same amount of time and effort to send 100 emails as it takes you to send 10,000 emails. You can't really say that you just need more inboxes, but you can't really say the same for cold calling. It takes a completely different amount of time to make 10 cold calls as it does to make 10,000, or ad spend, right? The game is very different at $100 a day to $1,000 a day. And if you've never really ran ads before, if you don't know how to speak to people on the phone, you have no business running ads, you have no business doing cold calling, you should probably just do cold email. It's just linear. The growth trajectory is linear. I can predict that if I want to get you to 30K a month this month, or if I want to scale you from 10 to 15K this month, just as an example, we can do the math in advance on how many emails you need to send. Then I can guide you towards getting the right infrastructure. Then you send those amount of emails, and like clockwork, if you just use copy that works and your targeting is on point, then you will get the results. It's that simple. And if you didn't get the results, then you did something wrong. But anyway, that's AI cold email. I'm not here to sell you on the mechanism, you should get hip to it if you weren't already. Because if you aren't using AI cold email in your agency and you're doing anywhere between 5 to 30K a month and you're not using AI cold email, you are falling behind, and it's very weird if your intention is to scale. Anyway, so 16K clients, you got it. So if you have a 16K client, that means you have a 16K offer. And if you have a 16K offer, then you got to bring yourself back down to earth. And I'm talking to my old self here. You got to think about this. It's a very aspirational goal, sure. You got to think about, look, who can afford this, right? Right? What type of client, if you're doing B2B, which I don't work with anyone who does B2C. If you're a B2B marketing agency owner, you want to sell offers like this because the more expensive your offer is that you can sell and that people actually want to buy, the faster you will scale. It's just easier. It's easier to sell 16K offers than it is to sell 6K offers if you want to hit 30K a month. But anyway, that's besides the point. You got to think about who can afford this offer, and you have to get really clear. Now, the good thing is most businesses with 10 or more employees, most of them, can afford a $16,000 offer. The other thing you have to consider is the sales process, qualification, how you market it, the framing, so on and so forth, and we'll talk about that in a moment. In thinking of who can afford this offer, you need to get very clear on how you're going to find them and who you're going to target. So ideally, you think about who can afford it, and also, is the pain big enough? So I sell client acquisition offers that assist marketing agency owners and business owners with client acquisition. They range anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. And a lot of you have purchased from me or work with me right now that watch my videos, and you know this. And so I want you to, like, part of why I charge people a high rate is number one, because I'm good at getting results. But number two, I want to expand your mindset on what you believe is possible. Because it becomes very conflicting internally and energetically to want to charge something and sell something like a 16K offer, but you've never bought something for 16,000 before, nor would you ever. So that's part of the first mindset expansion that I do with clients without really telling them is, okay, there's a reason why we're getting you this thing. And also the ROI is very, 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 very apparent. So it is Sunday, December 21st. I'm working on an offer that will completely solve that. It's already done, but it just completely solves the client acquisition problem forever, for good, for any B2B marketing agency owner on the planet. If the offer is halfway decent, that offer has already added $50,000 in new revenue in the last 6 weeks for the agency owners I'm working with inside my private program Spectre. And this with a more done for you and also done with you element. But anyway, the pain has to be big enough. So think about who can afford this. If you want an easy answer, typically the companies with more employees can afford this, and the pain has to be very specific, and the offer, the deliverable, has to be very specific as well. You also may have to consider the offer and the way it's structured. We'll talk about payment plans in a sec, or how it's split up with maybe a 50% deposit, 50% upon completion of deliverables. The point being, if you can get clear on who can afford this, and also like that again, it changes as you structure the payment. So for example, perfect example, Alex Hormozi had past tense, a $16,000 offer with Gym Launch, marketing to gym owners, who I want to say, it's literally in his $100 million offers book, so please fact check me on this. But the average income for a gym owner at that time was maybe $30-something thousand a year. It's right around there. He was selling them a $16,000 offer. Why? Because the ROI, number one, was very obvious. It was, you give me $16,000, I give you 80. And then number two, it wasn't $16,000 up front. I'm almost 100% certain it was $1,000 to get started and $1,000 a week after that, something like that. That being said, that's not the best way to do things. Alex Hormozy has also made way more money than me. I'm not saying that's the best or worst way to do things. I'm just saying there are many different ways to get someone to be able to afford your thing. Now, next thing is qualification has to be airtight. So if you have honed in on who can afford your offer or who your ideal market is, business owners. And I'd say go after business owners. Again, I'm assuming you're a B2B anyway, but just because businesses can raise capital easier, they can borrow larger amounts of capital, they can come up with capital more so than most individual consumers. So my companies, there's a lot of capital moving around, but I don't pay myself that much. So in terms of my individual capital, like I'm not going to buy something for $16,000 unless it's like a really nice watch, but even still. But through my companies, I definitely would buy something for $16,000 if it puts the money back into the business, something like this. So the qualification has to be airtight. So this is the next step. So people can afford it or they can't. Once you've done all the upfront work of trying to structure the offer in a way that it's fair and you're thinking on behalf of the client, and it'll be apparent if you're thinking on behalf of the client and you want to get them results. But once you have thought about this and structured the offer in the right way to your knowledge, the qualification has to be airtight. People can afford it or they cannot. So you should stop thinking that you can coerce people on a sales call. Or you should stop thinking that you can, woo and sell people into forking up $16,000 on a sales call. Like those days, I'd like to think are over. And also the easiest thing to do, the easier and smarter thing to do and more honest and upfront thing to do is just to have the right questions in the application form. And the people who can afford something for $16,000, from my personal experience, typically like to be made aware of what the price is up front. Typically. There's less patience, there's less BS. There's they need to, like, it's the shorter time, attention spans, like they're more time crunched. Even if it's just a range of a price. And also it's a lot better for you. Like we can get into your cost per call and stuff like that, but I'm not going to touch on that just yet with cold email. You don't need to be watching that too much. Not as much as you need to when you're running ads. Point being, you should qualify them up front. Cool. Either they can afford it or they can't. Just stop thinking that they're going to magically pop out from the sky. Now, on your qualification form, you should 1000% be asking people how much money they make through their business. If you're going after B2B agency owners or B2B clients, excuse me. And you should 1000% be asking them if they can afford whatever it is that you're offering. The right person will say yes, the wrong person will say no. You're going to have more no's than you're going to have yeses at 16K, so don't get discouraged. What I find a lot of agency owners do, and I was guilty of this myself, is they continue to change the qualification process. More strict, less strict, more strict, less strict, more strict, less strict. So more questions, tighter filters. Then they loosen it up because they realize they're not getting enough calls. Find some kind of middle ground that tells you the most important information. So is this person in your target market? Are they a B2B client? Are they experiencing the problem that you're there to solve? Are they in the right income range? And then can they afford the thing? Those are the main things that you need to ask in the qualification. And then I 1000% suggest, this is part of the sales process that we'll get into. I hope the lighting is not too bad. The sun is setting. Is calling them after they apply. But anyway, you need to work your way up to this price point. So if you've never sold a 16 grand thing, for your own peace of mind and for your own sake, I wouldn't make the jump from like 5K to 16K. I would go from like 5 to 8. Or if you've been stuck on 2.5 grand to 3 grand offers, I would go from 3 to 6 or 3 to 5, something like that. Then go from 5 to 8 or 5 to 10. Cool. So like I have offers that are 5K, 8K, 16K, and I typically don't bring them up to the other person. So it's you have to know who you're speaking to. You have to know how you can help this person. But anyway, you need to work your way up to this price point. So if you're not there yet, if this seems a bit far fetched, that's fine. Just continue to binge videos like this that make this seem a bit normal, because there are people selling offers for a lot more than 16 grand. There are people selling offers for 16 grand a month. Businesses got a lot of money. Business owners, excuse me, have money. Stop thinking they don't. Typically, it's the offer that needs to be framed in the right way. And we'll talk about this in a second. So, we talked about structuring the offer. One thing I wanted to add in there is, while paying and getting paid in full is ideal, we call these PIFs. While PIFs are ideal, be open to payment plans, especially if you can deliver results on the go. Be open to payment plans. I myself am not a fan of payment plans whatsoever. I'm just not. Cash collected up front, it's better for me, it's better for the person, it's more committed to the person. I have offers. My entry level offer, I don't even take payment plans anymore. The higher tier offers, perhaps we can work something out, especially if it's B2B. Because B2B, I guarantee results, so on and so forth. If it's just a, or done for you rather. But if it's something other than that, if it's just completely like do it yourself or whatever it might be, or do it with you, then there's a real level of commitment required there. I mean, to everything, but you get where I'm going with this. So be open to payment plans. Now, this is really, really key. So the presentation of your offer matters a lot. How it's framed. So take one of my offers under Spectre, for example. Spectre is my consulting company. So I'm not just training I'm not just training business owners on how to use cold email to scale their business. I'm installing the actual system into their business, getting setting up the infrastructure for them through our partners, and making sure they get X amount of clients and so on and so forth. So I'm installing a system into their business, and I'm essentially handing them a already refined, already built, already done client acquisition channel that on its own can get them to $500,000 to $1 million a year easy. It's already blueprinted. The email scripts are there. The infrastructure is there. Everything's there. They just follow the process, make a few clicks. It's all already tailored to their offer. They just fill in the blanks. So I'm essentially handing them a client acquisition channel that, like myself, like I did with Vintascale, like all the agency owners that you see in the testimonials channel that they're using to scale their business to 5, 10, 15, 20, 30K, 50K months, 100K months. This is the same client acquisition channel that they're using. So and if you don't have an agency and you somehow manage to find your way into Spectre, then you're essentially getting a business in a box. You don't have to think about your offer. So it's already done for you, and this is a business template. It's a templated business. It's Vintascale templated that has already proven itself to scale itself to $1 million a year in ARR, and then the other clients. Anyway, point being, so if I just frame this as cold email training or AI cold email training, that's maybe a $5 grand, $8 grand offer. But a business in a box or a client acquisition channel that is going to, on the back end, bring you, I don't know, a good 50K ROI. We made 50K in new revenue in like the last 6 weeks. How much is that worth to you? You know what I mean? Especially when there's a guarantee behind it. So the presentation of your offer matters a lot, and you really have to think about making sure that you do your offer justice. Because I see a lot of agency owners that I work with, they talk about their offer like it's this little thing, when oftentimes you probably provide more value than you think. It's the framing and presentation of your offer that so many of the agency owners that I work with really need to refine. This is marketing. This is marketing. This is marketing. Make it seem big, larger than life. Now, that's the presentation of your offer. That matters so much. So much. You have to get people to believe in the potential and the ROI of it. So now, that's the presentation of your offer, your sales process. At 16K, you have to be open to a 2-call close. At 16K, you have to be open to a 2-call close. Also, let me rewind this because I got annoyed me for a second. When you were thinking about who can afford this, you should probably, if at 16K, they like I mentioned employee count, but if you're not, like if you are qualifying on the application form, which you should be, I highly doubt that anybody making under 10K a month is going to be able to afford, or making under 5K a month is going to be able to afford a 16 grand offer. 10K a month is pushing it too, but still. The 5 to 10K a month mark, the business owners tend to be a bit more creative or a bit more ballsy in taking gambles. It's not, I mean, make of that what you will. But now, you have to be, so the sales process, this is really, really important. This is a lot about first impressions. Everything has to be refined in the sales process. Everything has to be smooth, refined. This is about making the impression and being impressive. You have to be open to a 2-call close. So you have to be open to the idea that you may not close this on the first shot. Have little things like a sales deck that you can send to the client before the call. If not a Gamma Doc, then a traditional sales deck. Have this that you can send them before the call. It's like a little pamphlet about the offer and so on and so forth. And have a personal touch all throughout the sales process. One thing that we've integrated recently that's really helped, that I wish I'd done before, was sending a little selfie video. I got this from Jeremy Haynes, by the way. Sending a little selfie video, introducing myself, letting them know that I'm the one actually texting them and reminding them about the appointment, but also it gives me a chance to qualify them that much further. But it also feels like a personal shopping experience. Think of when you walk into YSL or Gucci or any of these designer stores, Tiffany. You get assigned a personal shopper from the moment you walk in the door. Hold their hand throughout the sales process. Let them know that you're going to be sending them more information. Point them towards some YouTube videos that perhaps they can binge and digest. Point them towards your testimonials, your case studies. You need to be open to, number one, having a 2-call close, but also number 2, guiding them throughout this entire process, because they need to feel, sales is an emotional thing, they need to feel safe and secure. They're going to spend 16 grand with you. And also they need to know and trust and believe that you are in it for them and that you're here to get them results. That's what happens at the 16K level. It's everything you do at the 10K or 8K or 5K level, but intensified. It has to be very tight, well refined. You got to think about this. And oftentimes that just means either you get a consultant like myself to come and look at your sales process and figure out where people would get turned off, or you have to go and spend a couple $1,000s in cold email infrastructure or ad spend or whatever it might be to figure out why you're not booking calls and then refine that entire process. So things like the VSL, the headline, the landing page, the FAQs, the breakout videos, what happens as soon as they schedule the call, the emails that they get sent prior to the call that educate them, the personal touch. Perhaps you have appointment setters. We don't, but I call every client myself still to this day. Not my EA, not my ops manager, just me. I call every lead myself because I want them to know, or I want you to know, that what you see on YouTube is what you get. And that if I say I'm here, I'm making these videos to get you results, that number one, I'm actually here to do that. I'm going to do that. And number 2, here are all the testimonials and case studies showing that I've done it before and that I'm doing it now in real time and not 2 years ago being the last time. Right? I'm going to show you all the results of the agency owners that I'm working with right now, first-time agency owners, but also existing marketing agency owners who are making the kinds of revenue through our offer, through these AI cold email client acquisition channels that we're installing into their businesses. Anyway, so the main takeaway, if you were to read in between the lines, we talked a lot about tactics and strategy, but the main thing here is you want to have this really refined. And then also I'm trying to communicate to you between the lines, the standard, 16K is a standard. ROI, absolutely. ROI, absolutely, but the standard to what's expected here. And also one thing we didn't discuss, because I'm focused more on client acquisition rather than sales, but in the sales process, a big impression that people get on the call with you is when you know the right questions to ask. And you spend less time mumbling and rambling and you're focused on asking questions and figuring out where the hole is and where the gaps are. So you have to know what questions to ask. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. Perhaps that'll be a different video, how to close 16K clients. That's a great idea. Let me write that down. How to close 16K clients. Cool. That being said, client acquisition is the number one reason why businesses don't reach the levels that they should be at, why you aren't making the amount of money you want. If you are not at least at 50 grand a month, you probably have a client acquisition problem. Your offer is fine. It's fine. I would reckon that most of you are not reinventing I would reckon that you are not reinventing the wheel. You just need more clients. If you're not getting, a few dozen leads a month, like what are we doing here? You have a real problem. You got a real problem that I would personally 1000% pay 16 grand for if someone could come in and fix that problem for me without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not trying to sell you on a 16 grand offer, by the way. It's not Inception, but you get where I'm going with this. You should fix that problem, because when you fix that problem, that's the one problem I fixed, where when I did it in every single one of my 4 companies, counting, that's when everything changed overnight. The offer was fine. It didn't have to be any different. It was already a beautiful offer. The offer I have coming out now is probably my best offer ever. But that being said, it was the client acquisition channel. The client acquisition problem, that is, again, a very textbook problem to solve. If you have tried AI cold email and you have not seen success with it, it's because you don't know what you're doing, like any other skill. If you've tried ads and you've never gotten results with ads, it's because you don't know what you're doing. If you've tried cold calling, you've never gotten a client or clients with cold calling, it's because you don't know what you're doing. If you've tried doing content marketing, organic content, and you haven't gotten clients with it, it's because you don't know what you're doing. I just so happen to be lethal at all of these things. And I'm telling you, as someone who does all of those right now, except for cold calling, AI cold email, if you are under 30K a month, I'd even argue under 50, but under 30K a month for sure, is the number one, hands down, client acquisition channel, period. You can do as much research as you want. Organic content is up there in terms of trust building. I talked about a hot and cold strategy in another video, probably the video right before this. I don't know which order in which I'm going to post them. Hot and cold strategy is my strategy for scaling to 50K a month really quickly. It's organic content, but also cold traffic marketing, having 2 channels at the same time. So next to cold email, I would say organic content, but again, you can't predict when that scales. You are at the mercy of the algorithm. You're only successful as the algorithm dictates you are that month. And I hate to break it to you, but going viral is not a marketing strategy. So you need cold traffic. Cool. All right. If you are a B2B marketing agency owner and you are looking to scale your business to the numbers we're talking about in this video, I'll probably have some offer in the description for you right now if it isn't our new offer already updated. And you can check out the testimonials channel, and also there's a link to join my newsletter. See you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.